My advice would be for anyone job seeking, looking for a job, you've got to go all in on LinkedIn. Your profile and the content that you're creating on LinkedIn will tell 1,000 times more about you than an A4 sheet cover letter ever will. You're using a 2014 job strategy in 2026. LinkedIn has got 1.2 billion people who you can get access to. Hey everybody, hey, look, great to see everyone coming back on again for some coffee and questions with myself, Nigel GJ. We're talking all about talent acquisition, hiring, recruiting, all of the questions you want to know about how you get seen in this market space. And look, I think we should just get right straight into it because I can see there's loads of questions coming through now. So it's great to see you all. Fantastic. Mike, let's just go straight into that. LinkedIn, is it overrated? No, it is a really fair question, to be honest. I think that LinkedIn is one of those things you've got to sort of think back of where it evolved from. LinkedIn came into being nearly 20 years ago, and back then it was seen as just another website. It was almost seen like one of those sort of CV places. It's an online CV bank and put on there, and no one really knew what to do with it. Nobody knew how to interact with it, and up until really quite recently, people still didn't. If you've gone on to LinkedIn, you've probably seen there are, in the past, loads of those sort of corporate type of posts that you see, everything celebrating your new I've got a new job type of thing, or companies just putting out some sort of pretty bland and boring statement about their latest product release, which doesn't really interest anybody. It doesn't really get much engagement. The only people liking it are probably the people who work in the company itself. And then things change, and it changed around about 5 odd years ago, where more and more people started to get involved on LinkedIn and start creating content. But creating content in the same way that social media, other platforms like TikTok, like Instagram, like X or Twitter as it was, X, all of them started to create. So people started thinking, well, hang on, LinkedIn should be like that as well. So it has changed dramatically, and it's changed for the good, but only if you know what you're doing on LinkedIn. So Mike, coming to your question of, look, is it overrated or is it underrated? Look, absolutely. I think there is a massive underrating of what your capability is in LinkedIn. My advice would be for anyone job seeking, looking for a job, you've got to go all in on LinkedIn. If you're not going all in on LinkedIn in 2026, then you are in, and you're looking for a job, you're in it for a long time trying to find a job, because LinkedIn is going to be your key to getting in front of people. Now, look, it's not easy, because you're going to have to be creating content, you're going to have to be engaging, understand your target audience. You have to be quite good at understanding basic marketing and basic branding, because that's what it's about. But if you're interacting and doing, unless you've been living in a cave, you'll have been looking at several different types of social media out there. You will know what works and what doesn't work instinctively. You've just got to be confident in your own ability, your own value, and speak to your audience. Speak the language that is comfortable for you, authentic to you, and authentic to your audience as well. And if you're doing that, you absolutely will start making waves. You'll start getting in front of people. You'll start making a difference. That's when LinkedIn really does work. So absolutely, Mike, go all in on LinkedIn. I think it's really important to do that. We've got another question here that comes up, really super relevant. Do I need to write cover letters? Quick answer, no. Move on. No, but cover letters, again, look, this is from a bygone era. I was actually quite recently, at the sort of towards the tail end of last year and the beginning of last year, was involved in the UK with the Parliamentary Hiring Task Force. And it's there to try and bring hiring into the UK into the 21st century, because there are so much in the hiring process that's still stuck, not just in the 20th century, but also in the 19th century as well. Cover letters is from that. It was from that time when you used to have to introduce yourself by writing out a letter and sending that off to somebody, and then maybe a week or so later you might get a letter back. having just introduced yourself. Cover letters don't get viewed anymore. They just don't have the coverage that they used to have many years ago. Now, there are some exceptions to that still in the sort of more educational research type based environments. They still probably count a lot more in a more traditional format, but for everywhere else, cover letters aren't. Now, I appreciate that it's going to be difficult if you're trying to do just an application strategy and the application demands that you have a cover letter, then there's probably no way around it. And the frustration things for candidates are that they're writing cover letters and they're not getting seen. So look, I would be looking at your LinkedIn strategy. That's the way that you need to be getting forward. That's the way you can show who you are and what you're about, is by on LinkedIn. Your profile and the content that you're creating on LinkedIn will tell 1,000 times more about you than an A4 sheet cover letter ever will. And it's far more powerful, and it'll get seen by thousands more people as well. And that's why it's so important to do it, and why I don't advocate using them at all. I've applied for 100 plus jobs and I've got just one interview. What am I doing wrong? Well, I hate to say it, but you're using a 2014 job strategy in 2026. And if you're using that, you're essentially committing career suicide, because it's not going to work very effectively, as you can see. To be honest, 100 job applications for one interview, in the current market, you're probably not doing too badly, because I hear from people every single day that say the same thing as you, but the numbers are even more exaggerated. It's sort of 500 jobs and they've managed to get 1 or 2 interviews. It's just absolutely crazy. And it's because you are up against it with thousands of other people. And so it's a strategy that just simply doesn't work now. And it doesn't work because of so many different aspects to it, not just about the fact that if you're a recruiter looking through CVs and you have 1,000 applications to go through, you're physically not going to be able to do it, which is why they're sort of looking at AI, bringing AI in to try and help them sift through all of those applications. And even then, how are you going to stand out? How do you stand out against the other 1,000 people just on a bit of paper? How do you do that? And it's not possible for you to be able to do. So look at different strategies in order to get forward to people. And I think you're going to get a lot better at getting conversions to your interview ratio. I think that's definitely the way forward. I can see a lot more questions coming through, and thanks for getting all of these through. I think what I want to do with these sessions is just pile through questions. Let's just try and get through as many as we can do for you, rather than me talking about a particular topic. So what we're looking at is trying to look for these coffee and question sessions is exactly that. Grab yourself a coffee, just fire out as many of your questions that you've got, that you're talking about online. We can see them all here. I come through with all of these different ones that we've got. How bad is this job market? That's from Jeff. Jeff, look, it's a tough market right now. It is, and I'm not one that really sits there and starts to sort of say, look, the market's picking up, or the market's a bit saturated, the economy's not very good. You have those ups and downs all the time. That happens all the time in recruiting. I think what's different about this one, and why people are finding it super difficult, is because technology has suddenly ramped up and it's making an actual difference in it. And that's AI. AI is the real big differentiator into the hiring market right now. And it's not just for the companies themselves who are using AI and adopting it, and they're moving super quickly to try and adopt them, to try and find the right application for it, to sift through all the applications, to help them with searching, to help them identify great candidates, but also from the candidate side as well. There's so much AI out there, whether it is using ChatGPT to reformulate your CV, whether it's using ChatGPT to help you with interview techniques, whether it's actually using some of these AI applications to mass apply to hundreds, if not thousands of jobs out there. That's what's making the big difference. And that's what's making this job market really challenging, because suddenly the whole way that people hire has completely changed. It's completely changed. It is totally different to what it was 10 years ago. To be honest, it's pretty much different to where it was 5 years ago. And then the difficulty you've got is a large section of the recruiting marketplace out there, the recruiters, the people in talent acquisition. There's still a large section of them, especially the ones that go out there and give advice and try and help people to find jobs, are giving really dated advice. And so they're giving advice about what worked back in 2014. It doesn't work now. And that's where you've got to try and sift through it. So that's why, absolutely, Jeff, that's why it's a tough market. It is very different to where it is. And that's why I push. And look, if I found myself out of work tomorrow, 100% I would be going all in on LinkedIn. You go 100% into that. You make sure you identify your target audience, who it is that you want to do, follow those companies and start engaging. Produce consistently on a daily basis, produce value add, fantastic content that's relevant for your audience, that adds value. Find out what it is, that the challenges that they're facing and how you solve them, and then start interacting with those people's content as well. And the more that you start engaging, the more that you start doing that, you will get more views on your profile. And if you fully optimized your profile, the more views you get, the more conversations you get. The more conversations you get, the more interviews you get. And yeah, absolutely, the more interviews you get, the more job offers you're going to get. That's how job hunting, job searching works in 2026. It is a very different game. There's a great question here. How long does it take to get a job? If you use that old strategy, you're going to be there for years. It's literally taking that long. I'm talking to people, again, almost every single day now, who are telling me how challenging it is. In some cases, some people have been looking for like 2 years to try and find a job. I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But then when you explore it, and I work with them to try and help them try and develop that new strategy, let's have a look and see what you're doing. It's then going back to that old application only strategy. All they're literally doing is just applying for work. That's it. And they're rolling the dice and hoping that they're going to get spoken to. And then when you look at their LinkedIn profile, there's nothing there. And that's the key to it. For me, I look and think LinkedIn has got 1.2 billion people who you can get access to. I want to try and tap into that. Now, clearly, I don't want all 1.2 billion of these people, but what I do want is I want to find my market, my target audience, what's right in my niche. And then you identify that, follow those companies, engage with that content, and that's where you're going to make a difference. And it absolutely is possible. In this society we're living in now, everything is about adding value, and LinkedIn love it. LinkedIn like to see people who are imparting knowledge, in sharing that value, sharing your experience. That's where they will start to help push and promote that kind of post, because they know that their audience like it. People on LinkedIn enjoy that kind of content. So look, absolutely, I think it's really important for you to go out through that. Look, we're coming up. We've got one more time for one more question here. We've got one here. Actually, I'm going to take two. I think it's important to do a couple. Look, one there. Will posting more on LinkedIn get me a job? As I mentioned, look, it depends what you're posting. Let's just take just that one thing. If you're posting 5 times a day, every day for 365 days a year, and those posts are rubbish and nobody's interested in them, then no, it's not going to help you, because nobody's going to find that of value. It's not going to prompt people to want to look at your profile, prompt people to reach out to you. But if you're doing a fraction of that, but it is super interesting to your target audience, and you're doing that consistently, if it were me, I'd be doing it every day. But if you can't do it every day, then make sure you do like 3 or 4 times a week. That's relatively easy to do. And the way to do that is, look, do it in a block off a period of time, write it, schedule it on LinkedIn. That's all free, that you can schedule your posts, and then go and forget about it and then start engaging, commenting and speaking to people. But doing something that is really valuable is far better for you than just posting volume when it's not great content that you're putting out there. Look, one last question. I promise this is the last one. How do I stay motivated after getting constant rejection? I think that is probably one of the toughest things in a job search. We've all been there. I've been there. I know exactly what it's like when you're going through constant rejection. It's super tough to keep going and to keep driving through. I think if you have just an application only strategy, 100% it's going to be really tough for you to do. Really tough for you to do. And it's tough for you to cope with the fact that you're constantly rejected. You constantly go, because you then feel hopeless because you're not getting anything. And I'm sure if all you're doing is relying on applying only, you will have been getting 0 responses. You will have been ghosted, goodness knows how many times. The real difference with creating content on LinkedIn and having a LinkedIn branding strategy, as well as complementing that with strategic applications, by doing that, you're much more in control. And by being in control, it means that every single day of that job search, when times can be tough and you think I'm not getting anywhere, you have more control. You can create content. You can speak to people. You are in control of that. If you just have an application only strategy, there you are. You've done 50 applications today. What else do you do? How do you speak to someone? What are you going to do with it? There's nothing else you've got left to do. But if you're on LinkedIn and you're creating content, you're engaging with people, you're talking to people and commenting, you're starting to have conversations. That's what really fills you with a lot more confidence and boosts your motivation as you go along. So look, great question there. Fabulous to see you all. Again, thanks very much for this. We'll see you in the next session of Coffee and Questions. See you soon.